It started with a piece of paper. An envelope slid into the worn brass mailbox of a farmhouse that had stood for generations. The morning sun was just breaking over the tree line, lighting up fields that seemed to stretch forever. Samuel Carter, known simply as Sam to friends, was pouring his first cup of coffee when he spotted the letter. The return address bore the stamp of the local homeowners association. Sam wasn't part of any homeowners association. His land wasn't part of any development. His 1,500 acres, with rolling pastures, pecan groves, and a creek running through it, had been in his family since his great-grandfather bought it in 1910. A rare triumph in the Deep South for a black man barely a generation removed from slavery. This land wasn't just soil and timber, it was identity, it was dignity. It was the one thing the Carter family could point to and say, they couldn't take this from us. But as Sam opened the letter, the steam from his coffee seemed to fade into cold air. The HOA claimed that his property had been auctioned off to settle outstanding community fees. It was a lie so bold it didn't make sense. They claimed a clerical error had enrolled his land into their association years earlier, and that unpaid fees he had never agreed to, had led to foreclosure. Sam's hands shook. He read the letter again, then again, as if maybe he had misunderstood. But the legal jargon was clear. According to them, his land wasn't his anymore. The HOA had sold it. Most people would have panicked, some might have begged. But Sam Carter wasn't most people. At 62 years old, he had spent a lifetime dealing with systems designed to work against him. He had faced banks that lost loan applications, city boards that forgot to approve permits, and police who asked why a black man was driving a truck that nice. He had learned the hard way that in America, justice wasn't something you waited for, it was something you fought for. First, he called the county clerk's office. The voice on the other end was polite but unhelpful. "Sir, according to our records, the property has indeed changed hands." Then came the kicker. "You'll need to take this up in civil court." Sam could hear the unspoken truth in the clerk's tone. Good luck. But Sam had something the HOA didn't expect: patience, and a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but Angela Morrison, a family friend who had grown up down the road. Angela knew the land. She knew the history. She also knew the law like she knew her own heartbeat. For weeks they dug through records. They traced deeds, compared signatures, pulled minutes from HOA meetings. What they found was staggering: falsified documents, backdated notices, even forged signatures that didn't match Sam's. The HOA president had been working with a developer, quietly selling off parcels of land for future luxury homes. But they had made a mistake. In their arrogance, they had treated Sam's property like it was just another empty field. They hadn't realized that his land was tied to water rights that every home in their subdivision depended on. Those rights were still in Sam's name. Angela smiled when she discovered it. "Sam," she said, "they've built their houses on your water supply." It took 2 years of legal battles. The HOA tried everything: delay tactics, counterclaims, smear campaigns. They told the court Sam was combative, unreasonable, difficult to work with. But every lie they told was dismantled by paper trails, photographs, and sworn testimony from neighbors who had seen the truth. When the verdict finally came, the judge didn't just return Sam's land. He granted Sam full rights over the water utility serving the entire development. The HOA's smug president turned pale as the ruling was read. Without access to Sam's water, every home in the subdivision was unsellable. Sam could have cut them off out of spite. He could have left them to dry, literally. But instead, he made a different move. He offered them a contract: buy the water rights from him or watch their property values collapse. The price: market rate, millions. The HOA had no choice. Within months, Sam had legally sold the water rights, and with them the HOA's own homes, back into the hands of the people who had stolen from him. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. They had stolen his land through fraud, he had taken their homes through law. When the check cleared, Sam didn't throw a party. He didn't post about it online. He walked out into his fields at sunrise, the same way his great-grandfather once had, and listened to the wind through the pecan trees. The fight had never been about revenge. It had been about proving a point. That dignity is not something you can auction off. That justice moves slow, but it moves. And that sometimes the best way to win is to let the truth do the work. In the years that followed, Sam invested the money into restoring his land. He rebuilt barns that had fallen into disrepair, planted new crops, and set aside acres for conservation. He funded scholarships for local black students in honor of his parents who had worked the land by hand so that their children could dream bigger.
People in town still talk about what happened. Some whisper about how Sam got even with the HOA. But the ones who know him best understand that it was never just about getting even. It was about setting a standard. In a country where black families lose land every day through shady deals, manipulated laws, and systemic neglect, Sam's story became a rallying cry. One evening, a young man stopped by the farm. He introduced himself as a law student who had heard Sam's story in class. They told us about a case where a man used the law to beat a system that was stacked against him, he said. I just wanted to shake your hand. Sam chuckled. Well, son, he replied, the law's just a tool. What matters is knowing when to swing it. Years later, when Sam passed away peacefully in his sleep, his funeral filled the church and spilled into the street. Farmers, lawyers, activists, even former HOA members came to pay their respects. His legacy wasn't just the land he defended, it was the lesson he left behind. When they try to write you out, write yourself back in. And if they won't give you a seat at the table, build your own table, and own the water that fills their glasses. Because Sam Carter's story wasn't just a victory for one man. It was a testament to every black family who has been told their land doesn't matter, their history doesn't matter, their rights don't matter. It was proof that dignity is worth fighting for, and that sometimes the best revenge is delivered with a signature, not a shout. And in the quiet of those 1,500 acres, land that had seen the sweat of sharecroppers, the boots of soldiers returning from war, the laughter of children chasing fireflies, justice stood tall. The fields were still green, the pecan trees still bore fruit, and the name Carter was still on the deed.